In this screen recording, I'm going to be talking about my chosen locations. I thought that the most efficient way of doing this would be to create a little screencast from my location Reese. So, although these are only some of the few cafes which I could have chosen from, these are the ones which really stood out to me as being quite unique and not just the generic kind of officey, boring sort of cafe, because that doesn't have any energy or life on its own, and I really wanted to bring that to my music video. So looking at all of these, I think that they're all pretty similar in the sense that they're quite woody and quite not as urban as Starbucks, for example. I think that this one is a little bit too modern for what I was thinking, and then this goes the other extreme for a bit too tree-like and more in the jungle. I know that this one is in Mongkok in the flower market, so it does make sense. I also know that the space here is really thin, and around here there is a little bit of a bar area, but even if we filmed here or around this bar area, or even here, there would always be somebody walking past, or it might not leave enough space for everybody else, and I wouldn't feel comfortable with that. I also think that the lighting is a bit too harsh, as you can see here, like there's no shadows, there's no freedom to create any creative shadows, you could say. So for this one, I thought that it would be a really good idea, as you can see the whole windows and looking out, which is one of the key things I wanted. However, I'm not keen on how there's nothing at the front. I just really like the idea of having a bit more space between the window and the tables, so maybe not that one. These two, I feel as though they've both got the same issue, like this one a little bit less much, but they're both really inside and a bit too modern for what I was thinking, and again, the lighting really puts me off. Okay, so that leaves me with these. This one is the Hideout Coffee. I think it's a really nice concept, but again, I like the idea of having it flat on the ground. This one, convenient wise, is perfect for me because it's in central, but I wouldn't be able to do one of the scenes which I've been thinking about by having one of my actors walk out the door and then looking outside. It just, no, it wouldn't work. Okay, so moving on to this one, again, it's got similar problems to the Cafe Hay Fever. I feel as though it's a bit too small and that I'd be impeding on people's space, and yeah, maybe not. So then I was left with either this one or Elephant Grounds. So I think that both of them, I'll do it like that so you can see both. I think that both of them have got very similar vibes, whereas for like this one's got the windows, and like this table here would be perfect to look outside as well. And you can clearly see that it is like ground level because there's a car there. This one was a really big option for me, but the only issue is that it looks a little bit too modern for what I was thinking, and this one isn't as modern. It's more rusticy feeling with the whole wooden ceiling and walls, and I really love it. And I'm not like, normally they've got tables that are out in the front as well, and it creates more of a busy vibe, which I really do like. And one of the spaces which I've got my eye on is the bar, which is literally just behind this wall, and it's lovely, as you'd be able to get somebody walking in this door here, and then they'd be able to literally just come around a little bit here and just sit in front of my other actor, which is one of my scenes which I really want to do. I feel as though it's got the right lighting in there as well, so it's not over the top, but then I can still do different things. The type of artwork which they've got in there is really good, and I love it how here you're able to see the bar where they're making all of the coffees. So I think that although this one, the Garden Cafe, is really nice, this one just ticks off more of my details which I wanted, and I just got more advantages for that. So overall, I chose to choose the elephant grounds for my cafe, as long as I can get permission. Okay, so this moved me on to the park idea. So I do know that there are quite a lot of different parks within Hong Kong, but I wanted to make sure that they had a feature point as well as it being quite easy access. So for the whole easy access, I think that this cut these two out, especially because they're like new territories area and I'm in central, so it's quite far, especially if it's not the perfect thing what I want, which I don't think it is. So convenient wise, it would have to be the zoological gardens, but it is a real big tourist spot, and that's quite an issue for me because I don't want people like gawping at the cameras and like constantly having to fight people going past, and I don't think it would be easy enough to do. So that brings me on to the Kowloon Park actually. This would be my ideal spot, specifically from this angle as well, as I feel as though it would be really good to have my actor walking along here or having an over-the-shoulder point of view. But it's not that you can block that pavilion off, as it's just not fair to everybody else around you. And yeah, I just think that would be my main issue, that you're not able to block it off for yourself. Yeah, and because it's so isolated in the middle of the lake, you would want it just to be your actor, but hey ho. So that brings me on to Hong Kong Park, where it's very pretty to be fair, and it's all very perfect with the flowers along the side of the beds, and it's all around a cute little lake, but I feel as though it's too perfect and not very normal, if that makes sense. Like, you wouldn't have flowers lining a perfect lake and all of that, but there is the perk of it having flamingos there, which is definitely a unique point. They also have them in the zoological gardens, but that's not my point. So that left me with Victoria Park. This one is the idea which I had in my mind, but I didn't really know about it at first, so I think that that's a really nice thing. I think that the fact that it's very natural looking and there are lots of trees and there are lots of advantage points of me looking through different angles and points, and it's not too over the top, that it looks fake, which I think some of these may have an issue with. It looks more casual because I don't want this scene to overtake, for example, my studio shots. But yeah. Okay. So, then I was going on to think about overpasses and bridges and whatnot, and I was thinking about the ones in Central specifically because I'm most used to those ones, and I know like what the best time of day is, like when they're busy, when they're not, and these were the top 6 which I came up with. I think that the Central Pier one it's a really good one, to be fair, but there are a lot of tourists going past, and I feel as though it's very dependent on the weather. So as you can see here, there are very big gaps, and if there's any bad weather, it just comes right through and there's just no chance of you getting any good footage. So it's definitely something to take into consideration. Another point is that if it's not at night, it looks a little bit grubby over there, and I think I want to leave a grubby scene to later on. I'll talk about that. This post office one, it's a really nice sheltered overpass, but I feel as though because it is so sheltered, the only natural light is here, and they've got these artificial really yellow lights, and I'm not sure how I feel about that. I just don't think it's the right vibe. Moving on to this bridge near the IFC, it's really nice and it is definitely one of my top choices, but I'm just not sure about it. There's something, I don't know if it's the colours or the buildings around it, I'm just not drawn to it as much as I thought I was. Maybe it's the fact that I wanted to do a few different angles, maybe like a low angle, and I wouldn't really be able to get that from either side of the bridge because of this big road. That is definitely something to consider. So that leads me on to these three. So both of these two are overpasses where I would be able to stand on the road. Briefly, granted. This one I'd be able to stand on during Sunday for the whole day, which is quite good, because it gets closed for all of the helpers as they sit beneath here. So I would be able to get that low angle. And this one's quite good because it's got the real central vibe, and it's really easy to see everybody and get around and everything like that. So finally, the last one I was thinking about was the Cotton Tree Drive one, which basically leads to a few hotels. I really like this idea of shooting at night here and getting all the car headlights from a high angle shot. I think that could be really cool, and every time that I cross that bridge, there's never been anybody else there for a solid 20 minutes, which is really good, as that would enable us to play the music and just really relax and not have to worry as much about how other people react around the cameras, which is definitely a pro, which all of these would have to deal with in another way. The only other issue is with these two is that if I am shooting from on the road and my actors are up in the overpass, if somebody decides to stop and stare, it's going to look a little bit weird, and I can't exactly stop it because they're not on my level, if that makes sense. So just thinking about all of this, I think I'm going to go with these two specifically, as I feel as though that would be the most easy and practical ones to use, but also I'll be able to adapt more to it and just think a little bit about what I want to include, if that makes sense. Okay, so moving on to the alley sort of idea scene which I've got going on. It's just like any other city really. Hong Kong's got a lot of different alleys like in between the buildings. They're really cool. Some of them are more arty, some of them are more plain, some of them are a little bit creepy, some of them are a bit dirty, but it's really difficult because I love this Noonday Gum one, as the lighting really gives an edgy vibe, and I think that would really help. I know this isn't an alleyway, but it seemed to fit with the idea of channeling somebody through like a specific walkway which you can't get out until the end, so that's why I put it there. So out of these four, I think that this one is probably the most well lit one, and definitely the most artistic one. I think that my favourite one though is probably this one, as I love the connotations which it would give off and everything. I might try and do a few in this place as well, and I might just get my actor to walk down here, as it doesn't quite link to these two the same. So that concludes my external shooting points. So for indoors, I am going to be having 2 or 3 different scenes or shoots, you could say. Technically 4. So I'm going to be creating a darkroom set where I'm going to hang lots of different pictures up of one of my actors and have the other one singing in that room and just interacting with the photos. Another scene which I'm going to be doing is like an infinite black room with a chair, and I'm going to have one of my actors sitting in the chair while the other one is talking behind them and interacting with them in different ways. Another one is that my actor is going to be or almost losing his mind and going a little bit crazy. So for this one, I'm going to have literally just a plain black room, nothing over the top. I might have a red tinge on the lights or something, but I'm not exactly sure how I want that to fit. And finally, I'm going to have like a proper performance element where I just have my actor singing to the camera. I might change it from a low angle because I know that this is easier for me to do because I am shorter, but it does help to give that whole creepy vibe, and that they're a little bit more everywhere, if that makes sense. So I think that I've got a really good balance there of external and internal locations. So yeah.